Hi, I'm Megan Blessing from the Calling Ground, and I am here with my good friend, Callie. And Callie, how long have you been with this community?
I started in October of 2019.
We joined about the same time and have been really grateful for the tools that this community gives. Today, we want to talk about some of those things. We want to talk about the difference between surviving and thriving. And what does that look like? You handle things as they come up, you do the best that you can. All of that is great. But there is a pattern that we can get into when we want to thrive in our walk with the Lord, in our everyday life. It's not just head knowledge and information. We want it to be relational, relatable, and practical.
It's good because what is life without practicality?
All of us have emotional triggers. And I think, honestly, it's a challenge. We might sit, we have our quiet time with the Lord, we read our Bible, we talk with people, we're like, okay, I know how to love well, I know how to do my thing. And then you go about your day and something happens with your spouse or with your kids or with your friends or with your boss or just out in the world. And there's an emotional trigger that's hit. How do we deal with those things? Because we know how we want to. We sat with the Lord that morning or the previous night or whenever it was, and we were like, oh, this is the kind of person I want to be. And I was all so clear then. But when it happens to you in real time, suddenly not so clear. So we want to talk a little bit today about how to retrain our responses so that we're able to respond instead of reacting. And how do you regulate when you deal with those emotional triggers? Like that is a thing for people.
It is right. And I think it's important to distinguish that a lot of people are built a different way. So some people may not right away know what they're feeling. Other people can't get the feeling out of them. So we all have our strengths. And I think it's good that we're both here. For all my emotional people, I think I want to say that knowing how you feel, that's a really good thing. That's so healthy. But that emotion is like waves. It's a little navigation system in you, and it was given to you for a reason. It's to help you regulate. It's to help you know when your boundaries are crossed. Anger is not a bad thing, but it's also a wave. Comes in and it goes out. And so if you don't let it have its full cycle, it's like you're shaking up a bottle of Coke and just hoping that it's not going to burst on you at some point, and probably will. So that wave, letting it go out, means like I've named that I'm angry, and you'll see it. It'll let it go. Sometimes you don't have that kind of time. So making time in your evening to rinse is important. But I also think the trust of telling yourself, hey, I know you're upset right now. I recognize this. We'll talk about it later.
That's really good. Actually, many of you may know, I didn't know until a couple of years ago that there's actually a science behind this, that any feeling will burn through your system. And this goes for cravings too. Will burn through your system. I believe it's in under 3 minutes. I think on average, it's like 2.5 minutes. You guys can look up the science on that. But seriously, if you're willing to sit in the discomfort, or like Callie said, once you name it and know what it is, that's very helpful. So for people like me who don't even realize that there's an issue, there's just this underlying irritation because we've been taught to stuff it, suck it up, and move on, right? Really, it's like we've ignored our feelings. For me, it's a different thing altogether to realize, oh, wait a minute, I'm feeling something. What would that be? And then naming it, like you said. Yeah, so helpful for me.
Yeah. I also want to give a shout out to two different things that can happen in people. If you're a thinker, looping is also a way that you need regulation with something. You are triggered. Usually there's confusing data that you can't interpret accurately. And so for me to stop that, I've had to be okay with mystery.
Mm.
And I've had to tell myself, it's okay that I don't understand this. If God wants me to know or change something about the situation, he'll tell me directly and I can let that go. The other one I would mention is confusion. If you are confused about something, you're obviously going to enter a loop until you understand it. And so naming that confusion, giving it timeline in that you're going to ask the Lord to tell you the truth about it, those are helpful ways to not get stuck in a hole.
Let's say that I'm stuck in confusion and it is just, Callie has never seen me like this before. Callie has prayed for me for years.
It's mutual.
Yeah, I know. It's good. It's good to have somebody that's prayed for you for years. So let's say that I am in one of my confusion loops, trying to find the answers so that I can solve the problem, so that I can release the cognitive dissonance in my brain.
Yeah.
And it's not coming. And I am getting more and more worked up.
Found out.
What could be maybe a couple things that I might try other than just, we'll pray about it.
Well, I think it's important to note that God is not on a timeline and we are.
Yeah.
And so I would say step number one is regulate yourself because you're hyper fixated on knowing. And so back of the neck, take a cold pack, shock your way out of things,
Good.
ground your feet, do some box breathing. I know that sounds super hippie, but actually, if you're functioning in hyperactivity at all, you're already in the hole and you're not going to be able to get out.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing that I would say is take yourself out of that, because where there's rest, there's peace. And once you're out of fear,
Yeah. Oh,
then
yeah.
you can hear the Lord.
Yeah.
So step two is rest, telling the Lord, I'm confused, I'm angry, I'm frustrated, and recognizing he's not on a timeline and he's with you in it, but he needs you to take a deep breath.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'll be able to hear what he has to say from posture of being loose. Trent tells, are you in survival mode? Why do you need to know? What are you afraid of losing? That's really important.
That's good. Can we go back to the box breathing? Because everything that you gave me, the cold on the neck, the grounding and the box breathing, those are all physical things. And we forget, I think, as Christians, sometimes we are a 3-part being, which means we have a body, and it actually matters. Your body has its own sentience. It knows things, right? It has a memory. So you just gave me 3 ways to regulate my nervous system.
I did.
That is really good. Well, what that does, it just takes you out, like you said, from fear to love.
Yeah.
So it takes you out of that fight or flight and into a place
Yeah.
where you're open enough then, and not just in the survival mode, because we were talking about going from surviving to thriving, to where you can actually hear the Lord because you're just not in a fight or flight.
I think another thing to mention here, just because we're defining things, maybe people don't know what regulation is. Regulation is something that happens, if you think about it, mom and her 2-year-old kid, they're learning not to touch things that can hurt them. And so the mom's like, no, stop climbing on things. And the kid gets the tone and he gets all like anxious. And he's like, oh no, my mom hates me. But then they cry because they're ashamed and mom has to get low. And they do this reconnecting thing. And the kid goes,
I'm okay.
I'm
Yeah.
okay.
It's okay.
I think that we need to recognize a lot of life is stressful and you are able to regulate yourself, but we actually need people and community to regulate when things are really serious. Regulation is resetting your system out of fight or flight or freeze into just everyday normal breathing again. And that can snap you out of things like looping and confusion and carrying your emotions too much.
One of the things that we value highly in the calling ground is the community aspect. We are all human, so not one of us is perfect. We give permission and receive permission to be where we're at in our process. And we all loop. We all have these things. We all have stuff that comes up in our life that is tragic at times. And like you said, we're not supposed to do that alone. So I love that you brought in the community aspect, because that's really, really important.
Yeah.
So for practical takeaways, because all of this goes back to just what does it look like to self-govern, but then also have the community support that we need. So the first thing to do is to pause and actually realize that I'm feeling something that probably is unpleasant. Kelly has told me more than once, right? It's just like, you kind of seem a little on the edge.
I recognize the energy.
Yeah, she does. And I'll be usually my first response, I am not. And she'll be like, well, let's approach this just a little differently. I need you to take 4 breaths. Breathe in a box. No. Yeah. So very true. So for me, just pausing enough, like the pause tool to recognize before I can even apply any of the others, but then giving myself permission to actually care for myself enough to take, even if it's just 30 seconds and do one of those things, get my feet in the grass, get something that's comfortable or a cold wrap or something, or just take some deep, calming, regulating breaths so that I can just think and then I can ask the Lord about it. So that's really helpful.
Yeah, I think another practical step for people, these are small steps. They're not 30-minute commitments because we don't have that kind of
No.
time in life.
No.
But also you'll notice your quiet times with the Lord shrink in to-do list manner when you have actually trained yourself to be about the process of life with these things. You'll hear him in the day easier. You'll return to normal without feeling like you have this whole thing you have to process, you know? Your people that you talk to, they're going to be relational stories rather than needs. So practice the steps of regulating your system and not looping and knowing your triggers. These things are actually small, but they're helpful. Cheers.
Next time, we are going to talk about what resilience actually looks like. So I hope that you guys will join us again. Go check out what we are all about. You can go to thecallingground.com and check out our community. If you have any questions or comments on this video, please put it in the comments below, and we will see you next time.